Introducing the two characters you know and love. With big mustaches, it's Luigi and the Pringles guy.
headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Lisa Mateo. We have futures rising, and this is a day after the chip maker at the center of the AI spending boom delivered good, but not so great quarterly numbers. I think the kids call that meh. Yes, but optimism rising. Yes.
Cutting edge.
Shares, they've been fluctuating. Now those shares up 2.5%. So we're starting to see a difference now with those NVIDIA shares. So we get to the NASDAQ futures up 0.8%, 183 points. S&P futures up 0.6%. Dow futures up 0.3%. 2-year yield 4.09%, up 2 basis points. The yield on the 10-year 4.29%, and that's up 4 basis points. Globally, European stocks falling. President Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on the EU. Right now, we have the stock 600 down about 0.3%. The DAX in Germany down 0.6%. Those tariff threats actually hitting shares in auto manufacturers in the area. We have Jeep maker Stellantis down nearly 3% in Milan. We were awaiting results from Warner Brothers Discovery. We have it now, and it's a miss for fourth quarter revenue. Its shares this morning, they were down. Now shares are looking over to it. They're up about 0.1%. Shares of software makers Snowflake, they're higher 12%. Its product revenue forecast beat. It said there's a lot about recently launched projects for artificial intelligence, so that's the reason getting a big boost. But then on the flip side, you have Salesforce, their shares down 3%. Weaker than expected revenue. Investors had higher hopes for those new AI products. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News now. Wherever you get your podcasts, I'm Lisa Mateo. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. On Tom.
Lisa, thank you so much. We sit here and watch her do this, and I really can't say enough, folks, about just observing Karen Mosca or Lisa Mateo in real time, bringing you the news at the speed that we demand at Bloomberg. You sit there and you go, it's a gift. No, it's just hard work. And I mean, she gets in. Lisa's ready for the show. I see her security badge. She's in like at 5:35, 5:40, something like that.
No, thank you.
What do you think? I mean, we've got a lift, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking through the Warner Brothers write-up here. The direct-to-consumer unit, that's the streaming business, Tom, includes their Mac streaming. It showed improvement. They had adjusted EBITDA of $409 million. They added 6.4 new subscribers. I don't know. Is that enough to be competitive with the Netflix of the world? I don't know.
See. We'll do more on that. Just out right now with futures at 40. This is a joy and an important day to speak to Wendy Schiller. She's professor at Brown University, but far more nationally. And forget about the Republican-Democrat thing. Just here is our civics. Second paragraph. This happens to be from the Washington Post, Professor Schiller. The brief administrative order, which did not address the underlying legal issues, will allow time for a full Supreme Court review. Professor Schiller, what should our listeners, either pro-Trump, anti-Trump, anti-Democrat, pro-this, what should we expect from Justice Roberts in the Supreme Court?
Well, I mean, I think, Tom, I go all the way back to John Marshall. I mean, I really do think about Marbury v. Madison. I think about crucial decisions that the court has made in history that shift the balance of power across branches. And that's certainly what Marbury v. Madison did, elevating the Supreme Court's power and reducing president's power. Thomas Jefferson was not happy about that. I think in this case, this isn't just a one-off. There's a whole series of cases that will, in fact, affirm or restrain or expand the president's discretionary power over the money that Congress appropriates across the board. It's not just about AID. It's not just about DEI. It's not about just a single thing. So this is a real moment for Roberts, who's had a number of these really important moments, the immunity decision, obviously, but even going back to Obamacare, affirming, Obamacare as a program, but then also limiting the federal government's power to be coercive in how it distributes money. And that's this balancing act that Roberts is facing, I think, right now.
Let's take a given justice. I'm going to go with Whizzer White. Byron White, hugely respected within our Supreme Court history, legitimate college athlete at Colorado, legitimate baseball draftee with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He got to the Supreme Court and he surprised those people that thought Whizzer White would do this, do this, do this. Are we going to get the same surprise from the more conservative members of the court, or do you suggest they'll go lockstep with the president?
I think they're probably literally starting to think about middle ground. I don't know that they'll go completely lockstep, but there's a lot of room in this structure, Articles 1, 2, and even 3 of the Constitution, to have the president exert power. The difference today from any other moment in history is the size and scope of the federal government. That's the big new factor in the sense of this constitutional arrangement. You know, they were writing Constitution for a president that was overseeing a very tiny federal government, and that stayed tiny for more than 100 years. So now we've got something that affects everybody's daily life. You know, what does that mean? How much responsibility does the president have in power, and how much does Congress have a say in it? And this is going to be crucial going forward because of the scope of the federal government. It really does affect everybody's life. And that's where the court now has so much more at stake, not just for the separation of powers, but for its own survival. If you give the president, free reign over everything, what's to say he's not going to want changes in the court or ignore the court? So the court's survival in terms of the influential here is also on the line.
Professor, we had President Trump's first cabinet meeting yesterday, televised, and we had Mr. Musk there. What did you take away from that cabinet meeting?
Well, I mean, it's something you could not even imagine even like in a movie, like you wouldn't even, wag the dog, that movie about sort of a fake war. We thought, these things can't ever happen. I never in my days teaching ever thought this would be the first photo of a major cabinet meeting. I thought Trump was doing Trump. He was sort of giving Elon Musk a little bit, of shade at some point, but then also reaffirming Musk's authority. He clearly wants to walk away with a definitive, visible cut in the size of the federal workforce. And whoever can get there first will be Trump's favorite. And so right now it's Musk. But if it starts to cause some backlash and problems, he'll just instruct all of his cabinet members to do that and literally say, do it or you're fired. I mean, this is the way he will run the cabinet. So it was a bit surreal, but you could see that Trump was power playing even within his own cabinet, which every president does, by the way.
It's interesting. I mean, I think you looked around the table and you saw Mr. Musk, and I figure if you're a cabinet person, this is kind of the peak of your political career. You've become, you're heading up a big department within the U.S. government, but I guess you kind of have to report to Mr. Musk. Is that kind of the vibe taken from yesterday?
Well, I mean, certainly it's the public visible vibe, but of course, underneath and behind the scenes, you're going to see cabinet members. Now they're confirmed, and the FBI is an awfully powerful place. The Treasury is an awfully powerful place. I think these people will assert themselves behind the scenes constantly with Trump, trying to sort of minimize Musk's capacity to tell them what to do. But we have real things happening. Sadly, somebody died. I think at least one person has died of measles in Texas. That's something that RFK has to deal with as a cabinet member. There are things that will happen that will affect people, that will be negative. What does Trump do then? Does he blame Musk or does he blame Kennedy? And they're all trying to basically avoid blame for the backlash and the bad things that will happen from making such drastic, visible cuts so quickly.
One final question. What do you glean is the relationship between the leadership of the GOP Senate and the GOP House?
I knew you were going to ask me this. I did some homework before I came on, Tom.
Yes.
So already the Senate Republican majority leader is already saying, that House resolution that barely passed, that was lauded as a political victory 24 hours ago. We're not taking that. We're not interested in that one. That's not going to do it for us. We want lots of changes, in particular Medicaid. This is where senators represent entire states. They deal with governors much more frequently, and they understand that all the people in the state are affected. Medicaid affects states. So this is where you see the institutional design of the House and Senate really coming through, particularly on Medicaid on this budget resolution. They said the tax cuts weren't permanent enough. I'm not sure what that means. George W. Bush wanted permanent tax cuts. It's hard to do. So the Senate is already planting its flag and telling the House that there's a lot of work to be done.
Professor, you get an A. Thank you so much.
Good.
Wendy Schiller, Brown University. I really appreciate her input. Get tons of feedback, pro and con, for Professor Schiller. She incites thinking, which is what we do. That's pretty cool when someone who's a heavyweight civics person like her, she's preparing for Paul Sweeney
and Tom Keene. Exactly. So, it's interesting to see how the House and the Senate are going to deal with this budget issue. And, this is going to be a fight, as it always is, I guess.
I mean, when David Gura comes on, he doesn't prepare for
No,
us.
please.
He's like, whatever. Gura scheduled later. There's been a Gura sighting.
Really?
And I
haven't seen
think,
him in
is he
forever.
here today? Do we have Gurren?
Supposed to be in studio.
It's been a rumor. The control room. They're awake in the control room. Bonus
Very good.
round.
Yep.
On a Thursday, that's good. You know. Thank you.
Not in the
Art.
building. Okay.
There's been no Gurra sighting yet. We'll see if we
Well,
can
the Brooklyn crowd comes in a little bit later, is what I understand.
They do. And,
Yeah.
you know, Tim was in yesterday. That was the high point of the show yesterday, I was told.
Yep.
Carol emailed me and said that was the high point of the show. Tim
Yeah,
Stenovic
absolutely.
with us.
Tim Stenovic coming in.
With the NVIDIA coverage yesterday afternoon. They may have a press conference, a Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, President of the United States. We're trying to get an exact time on that. I'll tell you one-ish, but it may be later. We'll see on that as well. We're on YouTube. I have what do I have? The guy on YouTube with the headline, Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
He has a $5 billion valuation.
Wow. Good for him.
On YouTube. Lisa Mateo has a $6 billion valuation on YouTube. Good morning.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Lisa Mateo. We've got futures advancing, investors kind of waiting to see whether more economic data out today will also add to that feeling that an economic slowdown is on the way. In just under an hour from now, we get a read on U.S. GDP, durable goods, initial jobless claims, and that'll be followed by PCE, inflation, income, and spending tomorrow. Ahead of that right now, let's check NASDAQ futures up 0.9%, 191 points. S&P futures up 0.7%. Dow futures up 0.3%. The two-year yield 4.09%. That's up 2 basis points, and the yield on the 10-year 4.29%, and that's up 3 basis points. To commodities, we have COMEX gold down 1%, $2,899 an ounce. We have Brent crude $73 a barrel. That's up about 1%. Shares of Papa John's Pizza, well, it's off about 6%, a beat for fourth quarter adjusted EPS, so that's why those shares are higher. Rolls-Royce, though, resumed shareholder payouts after a 5-year break, raised its earnings forecast. Its shares are up 17% in London. On the flip side, we have eBay. Their shares falling. They're off about 7%. Projected sales the current quarter missed estimates. Soft demand in Germany and the UK. But what's also interesting is that sales of refurbished products, that's actually growing faster than new goods on the platform. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. Paul and Tom.
Great. Lisa, thanks so much. Really eclectic there, particularly in Rolls-Royce. Thank you for that this morning. Robert Schiffman, moments ago, publishing on NVIDIA. I want to explain this. Pros in equity always follow the credit research of the stocks they hold. I learned this the hard way when Amazon blew up years ago. Lehman Brothers saved me with their credit analysis, and the wonderful Holly Guthrie at Janney Montgomery Scott was a leader there on credit research. NVIDIA is on track for record high revenue. They look for a credit rating upside potential off of AA3, AA minus to the top of semiconductor peers as well. It maintains one of the sector's lowest debt to equity ratios. It's a very constructive outlook.
Yeah.
Which you'd expect.
I'd hit the market.
But when you do equities, folks, you can't just be, this is Ritholtz 101 with his wonderful new book. You got to pay attention to what the debt people say as well. We have that advantage in technology with Robert Schiffman at Bloomberg Intelligence. Our advantage as well, particularly on currencies, is a litmus paper. The global system is Audrey Child-Friedman joining us from London right now. Audrey, I got to go to yen. Paul's mentioned it, but we've really sort of ignored it, and we can't. We got a big figure move in yen, stronger yen with a 149 right now, down from the panic of a 160 stronger yen. What is your scope and scale? Not a prediction, but what is your scope and scale for further yen strength? Don't tell me we're going back through 100 to 90.
Well, the timing there is tricky, but the direction is very clear, Tom. The direction is for dollar yen downside. We started the year with the argument, mainly from my perspective anyway, the argument was mainly driven by, the international context, the scope for upside in currencies, which I call defensive FX currencies, such as the yen, as well as what was, in my opinion, what was a more supportive context domestically for Japan, with the Bank of Japan, continuing normalization, the Japanese economy growing, inflation a concern in Japan, and all those drivers that had been so negative for the yen for years have been turning already. So that was the beginning of the year on the domestic front, and now on top of that, we are starting to get some question marks about the U.S. economy, and that's adding onto the scope for downside on dollar yen, I think. So levels 145 is what you look at first before talking about 190, but the direction is clear.
Right, Audrey, I'm looking at our listeners, our viewers, people like Lisa Mateo. All they're looking at with Japan is the Aman Kyoto cost $2,500 a night, as a hotel. Why should we care about strong yen? Sell to Americans right now why they should pay attention to strong yen.
Well, I think, currencies, tell you a lot about what the global investor is thinking and how global investors are approaching diversification strategies, capital flows. So, the currency also tells you to some extent what people are thinking about, where they want to put their money. And for years, Japan wasn't a place that was looking to be appealing. And it was all about the US. And, the US certainly still has appeal, but it's not just about the US anymore. And because Europe is, there's so many question marks about Europe still. I think Asia. We also have not an all clear from China, and in that context, Japan is looking very appealing, and that's why I'm very confident that this stronger yen story has room to extend further.
Audrey, I'm trying to get the euro to parity for Tom for his next visit to Paris or Rome or wherever. That seems to be off the table now a little bit. How do you think about the euro?
It's not happening, Tom. I'm sorry. You're going to have to spend more money. Uh, I just feel that we had so many reasons to push euro dollar to parity at the very beginning of the year, in terms not only from a U.S. Upside narrative perspective, but also from the European politics, which were looking very shaky then, and the situation on the geopolitical front with the Russia-Ukraine situation. And while I'm not saying it's an all clear on those two fronts, I think we are in a better position now than we were at the beginning of the year. The Eurozone economic underperformance continues versus the US, but that's priced in. And the other point I would make is that everything is relative in FX. So if we were to get a confirmation that the recent softness we're seeing in the survey in the US economy are filtering through onto the hard data for the US, and the US growth narrative is starting to weaken, that will then have quite a significant impact on euro dollar. And I think we will then contemplate moving away from 105, but to the upside, to 107,
Right.
108 initially, and even a push towards 110. But we need to see
Right.
what happens with the US economy first.
Audrey, thank you so much.
Great.
Too short a visit. Audrey Child Friedman in London at Queen Victoria Street. Futures advance up 42. With our news in New York City, Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom. Hollywood star Gene Hackman and his wife have been found dead at their home in Santa Fe, New Mexico, alongside their dog. Early reports suggest that there was no foul play involved. Hackman was known for several movie roles, including Popeye Doyle in the 1971 classic, The French Connection.
All right, Popeye's here. Get your hands on your heads. Get off the bar and get on the wall.
Hackman also won the Cecil B. DeMille Award back in January of 2003.
You people ever get what they really want in life, you give up a lot in terms of family. And one thing, you're always in North Africa or Spain or someplace. But it's a make-believe world. And as I say, it's what I wanted to do as a child, and I fulfilled a lot of my dreams.
Gene Hackman was 95. Hamas says